Good Tuesday, everyone. King 5 meteorologist Adam Claibon. First alert weather mode right now. We have snow that's been falling here throughout the morning. We expect more to come into the night for some. Others are beginning to see that snow transition over to a rain snow mix. So I wanted to go ahead and show you outside right now where we are noticing maybe some snow and where we're not. Currently looking live in Seattle itself. The city may have some cloudy skies and maybe even a few very fine snowflakes. Overall, though, we're actually doing pretty good. It's mainly just wet, but then you go farther south, out there at the airport, and you can see some areas of accumulation, some really light coatings there on the grassy surfaces, but roads that are going to be more traveled should be okay. We're not going to have a huge issue when it comes to travel here as we go into the night for some of those locations, especially around the immediate Puget Sound area. The more you go into the foothills, maybe more over Kitsap Peninsula, Hood Canal, we'll get into that, but that's where we're going to be expecting some additional areas of snow to come. Let's go ahead and talk about our first alert weather event because it is still in effect. We have snow switching over to rain and snow, and then eventually by late tonight, we're going to switch that all over to rain here around Puget Sound. The lowlands, we are going to see some light accumulations, some pretty minor ones as we go later on into the night. It looks like after midnight, we'll start to see more of that transition over to generally just rain. And that will lead to some hazardous driving in some spots. Now it looks like, again, those areas and those roads that are mainly traveled, who have a lot of traffic on them, shouldn't see much issue, but gusty winds as well as maybe, yes, some icy spots could create some issues when it comes to even visibilities, as we are going to see some of that snow flying here as we go into the night. Let's get into temperatures because this is going to be key. A lot of our locations right now are sitting above freezing. They're at SeaTac Airport, 34 degrees. Yes, we did just see the snow flying, but it can still snow. A lot of deep pocket of air in place help to support that. Now we're at 36 in Renton, 33 in Shelton, right now at 36 in Mount Vernon, and 31 in Bellingham. That's the one and pretty much only spot that is sitting below the freezing point. Now that's not to say that we can't get accumulations with those type of temperatures, but it's a little more difficult to do so. So that's why we're expecting amounts to be very limited and minor here as we go into the night. Another thing, relatively warmer air will be arriving. So here we are in the afternoon, seeing more mid-30s, eventually getting back into the upper 30s later into the night, maybe even getting closer to 40 as we head past midnight into early tomorrow. Let's talk about some of the advisories because those areas along the immediate Puget Sound area, the north coast of the Olympic Peninsula, down around Mason County, all the way up towards the Canadian border, that's where we have these winter weather advisories in effect. Now, that's going to be until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. We could see up to 3 inches, but I think we're going to be more close around 1 to 2 in a lot of those locations. Then we're going to have the winds pick up too as we go later into the night. Wind advisories start up at 4 p.m. will last until 7 a.m. heading into Wednesday morning. Generally winds around 20 to 30, but we could see some of those gusts up to 40. And then we also have winter storm warnings out, and those are for some of the key areas I mentioned earlier along the foothills, more of the northern half of the Kitsap Peninsula and Hood Canal. That's where we expect to see some higher amounts of snow. Not to say that everyone within those locations gets up to 8 inches, but we could see some areas that do hit that mark, while most areas will be between about 3 to 6. And we're talking about snow elevations here, or at least elevations around 500, 1,000 feet and above. And then one more thing, I wanted to zoom into this area right here because we have some really strong winds picking up later this evening and into early tomorrow. This is our high wind warning, the northeast tip of the Olympic Peninsula. That includes Discovery Bay, San Juan Islands, Camano and Whidbey Island, and also northern interior. High wind warnings out for gusts possibly up to 55 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and look at the radar now. We do have some areas of snow that are moving through, and you can see we are starting to see some mixing in some spots. First, I wanted to go a little closer to the coast, and you can see some of those spots actually trying to transition over to that rain as the warmer air tries to work its way in from the west. Around Hub Tulips right now, yeah, some heavier precipitation helps to drag down some of that colder air. That's why we get a quick burst of snow, even though temperatures may be above the freezing point, and again, some minor accumulations possible with that. Then you go farther south here, around South Sound, seeing a lot more mixing with that green indicating some of the rain that we have there. Around Mason County, looks like we're in the form of snow there for the time being. That will start to change over to more of the rain here as we head into the night. And then as we look a little farther north here, we saw light snowflakes getting closer to SeaTac Airport, and you can see that that rain snow line is ever so slowly nudging its way farther to the north. Still seeing some areas of, generally it looks like some really light snow or some patchy drizzle as temperatures are really close explosive just above the freezing point around King County and going north into Snohomish County. Foothill areas again, if you're heading east on I-90, you are going to be dealing with a little more of that snow there, and we're dealing with quite a bit of snow up into the mountains as we head over the next 2 to 3 days. Let's put this into motion now. The future radar shows that rain snow line continuing to inch its way northward. Here we are at 9 p.m. Rain snow line around Seattle, even getting really close to Everett, along the north coast of the Olympic Peninsula, all the way down the west coast of Washington, seeing generally just rain at that point. Tacoma southward, it looks like for certain we're going to be in the form of rain. And then around Everett and northward, that's where going to be the spot that we'll keep an eye on for maybe some of those lowland areas closer to immediate Puget Sound that could see some additional minor accumulations as we go into the night. Foothills, though, heading across the northern half of the Kitsap Peninsula, Hood Canal, we'll get some more accumulating snow here as we go on into the first half of the night. 4 a.m. you can see a lot of the precipitation heading up across the Cascades by that point, and for most spots around Puget Sound, even over the Kitsap Peninsula by that point, early tomorrow morning, just dealing with rain, if not seeing anything at all, as that system will start to head its way farther to the east. We'll see a convergence zone, and that's going to be really key as we head into tomorrow, where exactly we could see some additional rain and snow. But I think most spots will actually start to dry out and just see generally rain as we go into tomorrow. Late tomorrow evening, heading into tomorrow night, another disturbance sweeping on through. This low will sweep on by. I think better chances of this maybe putting down some light accumulations, even for areas such as Seattle, around maybe Tacoma. Cold air will be in place. Going to be really fine, though. We're talking about a dusting maybe an inch or two, as moisture is going to be limited with this. So this is late tomorrow night into early Thursday morning. Now we are at 7 o'clock Thursday morning. That moisture beginning to head on out of here. Behind will be a pretty cold air mass, and we're expecting things to quiet down a bit more heading on into Friday, with generally it looks like rain and snow holding off into the latter part of Friday and heading on into Saturday. So I already told you about the amounts we're expecting across the lowlands. Check out what's happening across the mountains. Stevens Pass opening later this week, hopefully. It looks like Snoqualmie Pass, and then Mount Baker, Crystal Mountain, everywhere. It looks like between 2 to 3 feet of snow going to be up across the mountains, while we're seeing some really light accumulations here closer to sea level. Here's your forecast for the rest of today. Mid to upper 30s, right around that freezing point around Blaine and Linden. That Fraser outflow helps to support the colder air mass up into those parts, while areas farther south you can see mid to upper 30s above the freezing point there, limiting accumulations that we'll see here into the evening. The same as you go across parts of Central Sound, 35 in Linwood, 37 around Redmond. South Sound seeing highs in the upper 30s to low 40s. Generally just rain, but a few snowflakes mixing in from time to time with that also. And then lows tonight, they'll be right around the mid-30s, and a lot of these numbers will be initially. Now, that's not going to be later on into the night as we get around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. That will be here into the first part of the night as the sun initially sets. Then warmer air takes over, and these numbers will start to rise into tomorrow. Here's your 7-day forecast. Again, 38 today, 40 heading into tomorrow, and still noticing some rain and snow around in the forecast. Thursday, most of that into the early part of the day. Looks like Friday, we'll see that towards the latter part of the day heading into Friday night and into Saturday. Some minor accumulations possible with that too, but it looks like that will have a lot less moisture to play with before we head on into Sunday. See things beginning to dry out, at least for a little while. Partly sunny skies, highs around 40, and still seeing temperatures above the freezing point as we head on into next Monday, but also remaining below average and seeing another chance of rain and snow. I know there's a lot going on, and I just wanted to stress again those key spots here into the night. Kitsap Peninsula, northern half of Kitsap Peninsula, Hood Canal, and more of the foothills. We're talking about elevations 400 or 500 feet and above. Could see some of those higher amounts of snow into the night. Everywhere else here across Puget Sound, maybe an inch or two, perhaps some of the higher spots getting 3 into early tomorrow, into tomorrow afternoon. Well, everyone, stay careful and stay safe when you're trying to drive tonight. Shouldn't be much of an issue when it comes to that travel, especially around 167, I-5, or I-90 up to a certain degree. But we do expect as we head on into the next couple of nights that colder air will settle in, and that could create some icy spots for you when it comes to that travel. And also keep an eye out for some of those winds too as they get a little stronger. Hopefully we won't have too many power outages with that. We're going to have a show coming up at 3 p.m. this afternoon on King. You're going to want to tune into that. Plus we'll have more updates coming into our evening shows for 4 and 5, and then continuing on throughout the rest of the night on King and Kong. Hope you have a good Tuesday.